think we can get started then. We have all of our presenters present now. So welcome to the Q3 of 2023 Radworks Community Call, where we come together every quarter for orgs to present some updates from the last quarter, talk about some announcements for the upcoming quarter, and also just a wonderful place for our community to come and join and ask questions live to our lovely contributors. Just a few reminders before we get started. The call will be recorded and shared on our YouTube channel afterwards, along with some notes and important links that are shared throughout the call. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand, or you can write your questions in the chat, questions or comments in the chat. Please also just remember to be kind and respectful to everyone who's speaking and presenting. And that is all I have. I will hand it over to Abby now. I will also just be taking notes and trying my best to do all of the link sending in the chat, by the way, if you're following along there. Abby?
Cool. Thank you, Shelly. Hi, everybody. Welcome. So to kick off, I'm just going to give a brief couple of ecosystem-wide updates. This was the first quarter that we fully operated as Radworks, and I think it's very exciting to see how a lot has changed over the last quarter. So very exciting to see that starting to permeate throughout the ecosystem as well. So I just wanted to give a quick shout out to a couple upcoming governance proposals in our October and November cycle. So as we know, again, our governance proposals go through monthly cycles. So each month we'll have another batch of proposals. And so we just started our October cycle. And we'll be moving the upgrade governance contracts to OZ Governor proposal that the governance committee has been working on with scope left forward for voting this month. So the post has actually been on the forum for a while now, but now it's kind of like officially in the discussion period. There's already been some comments. And so this proposal will be reviewed at the monthly proposal review next week. So you can come in, meet the scope lift team, chat a little bit more about what they're proposing. But this will move into a social proposal this cycle, which means that it will just be a snapshot poll with a follow-up executable proposal, which is an on-chain proposal in the new year. So that's what's happening in October. And then, of course, in November, we have the big proposal cycle for our 2024 org proposals. So even though the year is not done, we are making the decision to try to move these through in the November cycle, since we won't be hosting a December cycle due to holidays, and January is basically a vacation month. So I think it's better, we all think it's better if we move ahead with getting these proposals created, reviewed, and moved through governance before the year's end to make sure that we have a smooth entry into the next year. So those will be hitting the forum by, I think, November 2nd. And each proposal will not only include an org proposal similar to what we had last year in 2023 for funds, objectives, progress, and purpose and mandates for each org, but they will also include a retrospective on progress and spending over 2023, and actually specific MOUs, so memorandums of understanding, partnership agreements, that social agreements that we've actually been working on between Radworks and Radicle and Drips respectively, alongside of the org leads and the apiary team. So there should be some more supplemental material. Really excited for this cycle. It's going to be a big month getting prepared for it, but if we move this through in November, again, we'll have a smooth entry into 2024. So, and then, as I said, we will not be hosting a December cycle since most are already away for a holiday and vacation. Cool. Any questions on those governance proposals? If anything, you can reach directly out to me or Shelby.
Yes, also just a quick friendly reminder to keep an eye on the governance updates channel in the Radworks Discord. I'll be posting all of the important updates and links in that channel if you're interested in following along in the next 2 governance cycles.
Cool, awesome. So let's move into our org updates. We're going to start with Boredom today with the grants update since he has to leave first. So Boredom, you can take it away.
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, so our main focus the last quarter has basically been around 2 main products. One is IDE plugins, and the other is continuous integration. So we've kind of found a space in the last quarter or 2 for grants where we're basically picking up product work, so things that are enhancing the product, usually through some third-party integration that will help us onboard developers to Radicle. So IDE plugins, as many of you know, part of the development process is writing all your code, and we didn't have any integration with IDEs, so that was something that we continued our focus on this quarter. And so we finished a bunch of grants for that, and we're in progress of funding another one. Another big missing piece is continuous integration. So this hasn't quite been funded yet, but there's been a lot of sort of online whiteboarding sessions and mock-ups and POCs around this. So we're at a point where we can start funding this. And again, as many of you know, this is definitely a big missing piece, I think, in terms of being able to sell Radicle to anyone who's trying to develop a serious code base. This sort of missing piece will hamper us in being able to sell and kind of like get people onboarded and accepting of switching or migrating over to the Radicle. And then on the topic of migrating people, we also have an in-progress grant around GitHub migration. So Yorgos's team, as part of their own onboarding process, built a tool that helps teams to migrate a lot of their metadata from GitHub onto Radicle. So again, this is just one of these things where we see an opportunity to fund work that helps onboard and basically just help with user acquisition. So right now, this last quarter and the quarter before that, it's really been about focusing on making sure people are comfortable with coming into the ecosystem. And I think once we start getting more people onboarded, we might think more about how we can help out with getting people to retain and kind of stay inside the ecosystem of tools that we're building up. In terms of our goals, we're doing pretty good on these. One of our goals is recruiting, so we wanted to onboard grantees to more permanent work. Yorgos's team has now been working with us for, I think, well over a year. And there's some conversations about his team either starting up their own org or possibly working a bit more closely with the Radicle Org, both of which we're fully supportive of. Just the timing on that we're not sure about. But I think in terms of getting solid contributors who consistently come back, we're doing a pretty good job with that with his whole team. Dog fooding, we wanted to move 100% of our grants over to drips, which we've done the last 2 quarters. So every grant that we funded has been through drips V2. We're still waiting. We want to move all of our docs and repo over to Radicle. We're just waiting for the migration grant to finish, and then we'll do that. Another one was funding for dependencies. We basically got to ride the coattails of the drips proposal that happened a few weeks back. So that made that one complete. Lastly, we wanted to look into ways to get more community input for grants. This one we haven't really touched at all. And I think a lot of it has to do just with sort of the scale of the grants program so far. I think this might have been a bit of, it had a lot of dependencies on other tooling from other people, but also I don't think that grants is garnering enough input from community contributors to really warrant some sort of like crowdsourcing of votes yet, but we might get there next year. Yeah, and this is just the latest budget. I'm based on the grants we have in progress and then that are upcoming. We'll probably run out of funds right as we're about to do the 2024 proposal, so it's pretty good timing. That's it. Does anyone have any questions?
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you, Boredom, for the update. Everybody can see the grants update on the forum. Shelby posted it in the chat. Really awesome. I'm really excited to see that migration tool built. I feel like we've been talking about that forever. So if you could let us all know when that is released, that'd be great, because definitely want to try it out. Cool. So we can keep it moving along. I think we'll move on to Radicle and Drips now. Maybe we'll pass it off to Radicle first.
Sure. Let me present something. Okay. So sharing entire screen or rather, okay, yeah. All right. So, okay, is that working?
Can you make it a little bit bigger, possibly?
Yes. All right. Just restart this. Is that better?
Wonderful. Thank you.
There you go. So yeah, Radicle Org general updates. I guess mainly just team updates. So we had some people join, some people leave. Lars joined, who's in the call, and going to be working on our CI and CD, and I'll talk about that in a bit. Andrew Ken joined. He's not in the call, I think. Anyway, he's in a very different time zone, so it might be a bit difficult. And then Daniel, who had been working with us for a while on a very part-time basis, is joining a little bit more officially now. So that's why I have it in this update. And he's going to be working on UX, mainly the web. Yorgos and Nikos, who were working for a while on the CI, are moving to grants. So that's basically what Boredom said. So which means we will have some CI work both within the Radicle Org and in grants. And the split is simply that in the Radicle Org, we'll be working on what we call native CI, which is kind of our own CI solution that is native to Radicle. Whereas on the grants org, it'll be integrations with third-party CIs like Concourse, etc. And then we have 3 people who left for various reasons, which I don't think I need to go into. But they are not in the call, I don't think. Okay, moving on. Some of the quarterly updates. So there were two kind of big objectives that we had this year that I kind of keep on coming back to. One of them was getting closer to GitHub in terms of core feature parity, and the other one was stabilizing the tech stack. So on the first objective, as I said, work on CI has started. There is already a proof of concept Concourse integration. That work will continue through the grants program. Lars is working on a native CI that is going to be using this API that we're designing that essentially will allow various CIs to integrate with Radicle. So both the Concourse and the native and other integrations will work via a shared API that we're currently working on. On the issues, comments, etc., we have embeds working, which means that you can now finally attach images and files to comments and to anything really, or anything that makes sense. So this has allowed the Radicle web team to start to migrate issues over to Radicle, which is nice. And yeah, discussions, so yeah, conversations around patches, issues, etc., are all working on the web via COBs, collaborative objects. So that's great. So replying, reacting, editing, all of that stuff is working. We have an initial version of private repos that you can try out with rad init-private. I can go also in more detail on this, but it's pretty cool. Right, inline code commenting is still in the works. This was delayed quite a bit by a bunch of surprises in terms of, well, not surprises, but yeah, just kind of you know, things that came up that we did not expect. I guess you'd call that a surprise. There's a proper patch diffing tool now that generates syntax highlighted diffs that is very nice to use, and that will be integrated with the code review and all of the other diffing utilities in the CLI. We have proper node aliases integrated now since last time, which means that yeah, you see people's DID, but you also see their alias, which is non-unique, but is helpful to get an idea of who you're working with, who's opening patches, etc. And then we have a full redesign of the web app in the works that Daniel is leading. And this is to be more on brand with our website, our homepage, and also fixing a bunch of long-standing issues with the layouts that kind of grew very organically over time. So that's on the GitHub feature parity side of things. On the stabilization, things are good. The networking protocol has been working without issue for several months. We've been exchanging patches, code, issues, etc., with no problem. There's two major upgrades happening though. On the networking side, one is hole punching, which Andrew is working on. And this is in review, so the code is there and is in the process of being reviewed. This would allow basically, you know, two users on laptops or whatever on like home networks to directly connect to each other via a rendezvous node. So the rendezvous node is any node on the network that that is online that the users are connected to. Or that one of the users is connected to, rather, and it helps the users establish a connection directly between them, and then the data can does not have to go through any intermediary. This also plays into private repos and makes them a lot more useful. Yeah, so that's in the works. That's using TCP at the moment. Eventually, we'll also support UDP, but that's for later. Then Fintan has been working on this big Git fetch protocol rewrite that is also in review and has been in review for some weeks now, and it's making good progress. Yeah, I mean, I've talked about this already. I'm not gonna go into too much detail. Yeah, patches and issues have been stabilized. So this was a big thing, having the COB stable so that we don't make any breaking changes. Although now there is a new ID COB in the works, so we realized that we could represent radical identities as COBs, and this would simplify a lot of things in the future, as well as make the ID COB or the identities much more flexible for different use cases. This is a breaking change, though, unfortunately, but it's something that we want to do before our sort of stable release. Yeah, miscellaneous stuff. There's a pretty nice rad node command now to start the node, stop it running in the background, check the status, etc. We have a new community seed node up. It's kind of like the old one, like from like years ago, I guess. That is public. Essentially, anyone can post stuff on it. And then lots of work went into the user onboarding experience, especially on the CLI. Yeah, right. Okay, yeah. So then last thing is kind of roadmap update. So all of the focus for the next 3 months and maybe like early next year is going to be on our V1 launch. So this is essentially a polished product launch that is not necessarily, including all features, but what is there is done and works well, basically, and is has good UX. So it's mostly going to be around the CLI. There's going to be some CI/CD, but probably just the APIs, unless we can get some kind of native CI in there. Of course, everything that exists currently is still going to be there. It's just we're not going to officially package it as 1.0 and directly support it. We'll probably mark it as experimental and try it as at your own risk. So that's going to probably include the third-party integrations, the web UI that is not going to be ready for that launch, and a couple of other things. But what we do want at least is the new fetch, hole punching, and code review issues, patches, all of that stuff, and finalizing all of the protocols that we're breaking in the next 3 months. We're also working on a website update that's going to contain a lot more information, getting started guide, some kind of docs, some other pages, just generally a more full-fledged website. Right now it's just one page. There's a new blog that we're hoping to launch also for the V1. And on the web app side of things, we're finishing this redesign. We're reworking the authentication flow with your local node, reworking the patch page, reworking the landing page. If all of those things are ready, of course, for the V1 release, we will include it in the release. But I don't think it's going to be possible, but we'll see. That's basically it for us. I don't know if there's someone on the call who can tell me that I forgot something important. Let me know. Otherwise, that's it. Any questions, comments, thoughts?
I have a question. Actually, how did you implement private repos? Like what is what makes them private?
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of an idea I had in Paris, talking to some folks. Essentially, instead of doing data level encryption or like at rest encryption of everything, which would kind of not work very well with the Radicle design, in the sense that we give node operators the choice of what they host at the moment, and we like that about Radicle. And if the data was encrypted, they would not know what they're hosting, essentially. So we wanted to keep that property. So the way it works is simply that the identity documents of Radicle repositories have an optional set of keys that you can configure such that your node or any node that has that repo will only share that repo with those other nodes that have those keys. So essentially, it's like a privacy group, kind of, right? Or a private network almost within the regular network. You can think of it that way. So so nodes that are nodes that are not within the privacy group would not know of the existence of these repos, and nodes that are in that privacy group would know and would therefore be able to fetch them from other nodes. Those other nodes would verify whether the requesting node is in the privacy group, and if so, would share the repo with them. That's basically how it works, and that's why NAT traversal is especially interesting, because the downside of this approach is that you can't host your code on intermediate nodes or intermediaries that are not part of the privacy group, because they would have access to your data, essentially, right? You would have to trust them. So with NAT traversal, we get around that, because an intermediary node would not have to know about the private repo. They would just have to make the introduction between the two nodes that want to exchange that private repo, and then the transfer would happen directly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, generally, it sounds really cool and sounds like a interesting way to implement it. And remember this being a feature that people were really interested in. So
Yeah,
it's
I mean
awesome that it's live. I'm excited to try it out.
that was the thing. Like a lot of people asked for this, and so I thought it made sense to prioritize. And this way of doing it was not too complicated compared to having like full object encryption in Git or that sort of thing.
And I like the way of describing it as privacy groups. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Shelby, yes. Oh, there's a queue. That's cool.
Oh, look at this. Everybody wants to ask questions. Yeah, I just have a quick little question maybe.
Yeah.
Have you been able to speak to some users or to kind of help figure out or prioritize like the feature development, or are you basing it more off of, or what are you basing it off?
I mean, that's kind of the idea. I mean, we're essentially the prioritization is like, first it's for us. So first it's for us as users. So what do we need to use Radicle to build Radicle, right? And there's kind of two sub teams. So the Radicle interface team has different needs than Heartwood, for example. So that's kind of the level 1 prioritization. And then level 2, comes from users. So for example, we don't really need private repos, but that's something a bunch of people I talked to who are considering Radicle immediately asked about. So I wanted to be able to say yes to them. But yeah, that's generally there's no, at the moment there isn't a formal process, so it's really just based on conversations I have at conferences and just kind of trying to understand what people want.
Yeah, cool, makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah. Ellie?
Yeah. How do I lower my hand? I guess I can just click that button again.
It's our muscle on you.
Yeah. Okay, it's gone. So I had a similar question to the question that Selby had, which was specifically with regards to UX and the collaboration aspect of Radicle, right?
Yeah.
So have you made any progress with some of the communities that you like dream of, or you imagine that are using Radicle, and if you said there's no process yet, like why and when will there be a process about that?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say there's like that much progress since the last time we spoke, probably. I think right now there's things that obviously need fixing still. Like we're still at a point where things are not working for us well enough, right? That we're like, okay, let's just fix that, right? So that's what I meant by the kind of prioritization order, because if it's not working for us, then we're not going to pitch it to anyone else. It doesn't make sense. And there's still, there's like, people within a team that are confused by certain things. So that's a signal to prioritize fixing those things or making them clear already. So that's kind of like the first order of business right now, is just getting it to work for us, getting it to work well for us. And like I've done a few also, external user tests, I guess, kind of ad hoc. I've also had people I'm working with try to install it, to use it, and so I also gather feedback from there. So all of this is to say, at the moment, there's more feedback than time than resources to fix everything still. Once that feedback once we start to drain that queue, right, and we're like, okay, what should we do next? Then I think it'll make sense to go back out to potential users. And I also think with the V1, that's going to be an opportunity to get a lot of user feedback. So once that's launched, we'll have people trying it out, new people, fresh eyes, and that's going to be a good opportunity.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, yes, you're absolutely right. That, like, dog fooding is the most important thing at this phase. at least in my opinion. But specifically as you saw the V1, as you're getting closer to that, I think it would be good to actually have some, more concrete feedback from the specific communities you want, rather than, from like, individual X or Y, like hobbyist or whatever, right? So yeah.
Yeah, Zlatan also has some feedback. He says, once we have V1, we might want to start working on having a proper .dev package in it, but it's a bit hard work compared to how Debian works, but at least having our own Debian available is also nice. And also there was something else, around social artifacts. That's more like, like what people have been finding interesting about Radicle. But I was going to say, yeah.
Makes sense. I have one more if there's
Sure.
no one else on the line. So with regards to community development, what's new there? Is there something happening? Is there something planned there?
I wouldn't say that there's much happening at the moment. There's conversations with. It's kind of on your previous point, which is that there are conversations, like open conversations with different potential users, different potential community leaders around whether they would be interested in adopting Radicle, and if not, why not, right? That's kind of the start. There's obviously people who come into our Zulip community and ask questions and try it out. So that's been slowly trickling in, and that's been nice. What I was going to say before that I forgot is that the V1 is kind of, it's not a release that is tailored to a specific user group. It's more a packaging of what we have and what we think we can complete within a certain amount of time. So it's really more about saying like, okay, like let's just get one polished package out that is well documented, and that we are proud of, that we can sort of pitch to people, that we know works end to end, that has good onboarding, good docs, etc. So it's more about that, which I think is basically the step before saying, okay, let's try to get this user group and let's make sure everything they want is implemented. It's really more about packaging what we have in a nice way and stabilization.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? I think there's no other questions, right? The queue is empty.
The queue is empty, so we will keep it moving along. Thank you for that awesome update. So excited for this V1 launch, and big welcome to everybody who has joined over the last quarter. It's really excited to have you guys here. Great. We can pass it along to the Drips team.
Hey everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Should I zoom in, or the size is okay?
I think it's okay.
Perfect. Okay. So yeah, this is Elle. I'm reporting for the Drips team. General announcements and updates for us. The previous quarter was a very important quarter for us. I realized this after, but of course it's the quarter that we officially announced that Drips is now on mainnet. That happened in July, and then the most important thing is the fact that we had the first organization, which is this organization, of course, Radworks, committing to fund its critical software dependencies over the next year with $1 million in RAD and USDC. This was a very exciting and informative process for us. We learned a lot, and we learned things that actually will make it to the product. But also it's really exciting because finally there is money flowing through the system. And the hard truth that we learned with our alpha launch was that for a fundraising for a funding platform, of course, capital is something that is very, very important, right? So Radworks, the Radworks proposal passed. The beauty of having a live product is that we can actually, I can show you that on drips. Let me do this quickly. It's a little bit clunky because I need to be, showing a tab and, stop sharing my screen and all of that. So apologies for that, but I have some particular security settings. So this is the Radworks, the list that effectively is the list that the Radworks DAO funded. You can see the live counter already up to date. We had 83K streamed effectively to the Radicle dependencies, drips dependencies, and Radworks dependencies. You can, of course, click on any of those and, be able to see the actual projects, that are in there. You see still, a lot of GitHub links. Hopefully when Radicle is in V1, hopefully that, will also change. We'll talk about that in a bit. But yeah, this is live and this is very exciting for us. Why it's so exciting? Beyond funding our software dependencies and what that means, which we wrote quite a lot about, but additionally it's really important because what we're doing this quarter is we're taking this model and we're going to different organizations, and our goal for Q4 is to have more well-established, especially Web3 orgs, that funding their software dependencies with drips. We really try to prove this model as, make it a norm, right? Like that, if you care about open source, you have to fund your critical software dependencies. So that's exciting. So that's the first, I guess, big update. Let me go back to my general update. Oops, sorry, this is the wrong screen. Okay, back in the previous tab. Can you see my screen again?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes. Awesome. Cool. The second exciting update for us this month is that we also have the first organization outside of our own that actually has committed to fund its dependency with drips. This is Octant. Octant is an organization that is associated with the Golem project, the Golem Foundation, for the ones of you that are aware of that. They have a program for effectively choosing technologies that fund public goods, digital public goods, open source software in this case. And we're selected to be one of those teams. We have already, they have already committed 20,000 euros dollars in ETH just for this first quarter, and now we're also participating on the same mechanism they have for the next quarter. So there is more funds actually to be expected here, and we're very excited about this partnership. In fact, we're doing a space with them tomorrow for anyone interested on x.com. Still feels quite weird actually saying that. But yeah, so we already have another organization that is excited about funding the critical software dependency with drips, which is very, very nice. We also started onboarding recipients, right? Developers that have been receiving funding from specifically from the Radworks, group. You can go to the forum and actually click on that link there. I have an example from ethers.js. We had some hiccups as, going out and try to basically reach out to some of those projects, but we're now up and running with that. And we have made the decision to actually onboard each and every one of these teams by actually meeting them, like, scheduling a call and, introducing them to what drips is and what Radworks does and, why this is important. The reason why we did this is simply because, we had a call with one of our biggest recipients, which is ethers.js, and we got so many things out of that. We learned so much about, what that person expects, from something like drips, also what that person is excited about. And we actually saw that person actually splitting 40% of whatever is coming in with their own software dependencies. So, the idea resonated a lot with them. So, we think that this is very, very important for us to actually, speak with them, show them that there's an organization behind it, what this organization stands for, and, get them to play the same game, right? Basically pass some of that income to your own software dependencies and start creating this interesting dependency tree where money flows through. So that has been happening. This actually started last week. So only last week we started onboarding developers. The reason was that we wanted to have some funds accumulate before we reach out, right? So if you remember, the Radworks proposal is $1 million over a year, but of course, it starts from zero and starts streaming every second that passes more and more funds proportionally. So we wait a little bit, so there is some, I guess, decent money on the line before we reach out. And now we have started doing this, and we're going to continue doing this. And, we keeping notes from those calls. There's a lot of great feedback that we're receiving, both what people, love that we plan on using as marketing material, but also, what people expect and what we're missing that we plan on using as product feedback. This is some of the most exciting things happening. Additionally, we completed another security audit, which was something that we were planning on doing this quarter. We used a team called Spearbit that is really, like, we got very, very good feedback about them. The good story is that we got a lot of praise out of that review. So they didn't find any mid or high severity issues. They only found informational, like gas optimization related stuff. And they plan on publishing the report in the next 2 weeks. And, they also shared a lot of great feedback for our two main smart contract developers, Igor and Manuel, that this is one of the cleanest code bases they've seen. And, this was after the fact. So I don't think they were trying to praise us because we have already committed to pay them. So it made us feel good about this. There's no perfect security. Again, we're doing everything we can to have a secure code base. But it was another boost of confidence that this protocol can now support more money. Right now, there's, I think, 1.2 million on the smart contract. We think that now we can actually scale that quite nicely without needing another security review for a while. So on the product front, we've been taking an iterative approach. As I mentioned, we're still very focused on funders, bringing capital in and getting them to fund their own software dependencies. And now we'll start onboarding developers as well. There's been a lot of stuff that we've built. I'm listing a few things there, but there's a lot of improvements on the funder onboarding, on the claiming project experience, on streaming. There's the ability to now nest drip lists into drip lists. This was something that we actually built as part of the Radworks proposal. The Radworks list is a similar list, right? Now we also on the Safe app store, if that's how they call it. So you can use the app with a multi-sig. And there are a few exciting things coming. Basically, to date, you can only create one drip list per project. Of course, this is just a limitation, an arbitrary limitation we had in the app. The protocol supports, many. So now we will support that in the app too. And then additionally, we've been building a custom GraphQL API for drips that will help a lot with the performance. If you go on drips, you load the list, you will see that a lot of these counters take some time. There are a number of reasons why this is happening. I can go in more detail if people need, but we have a solution that vastly improves performance here. That's that. And then with regards to community development, actually we've been very active. So we presented at Funding the Common Paris. There's a link to that talk on the post. We present to Funding the Common Berlin. This talk is not yet online, but will be online. We present on Ceiling Point, both in Paris and Berlin. We did a podcast with Greenpeel that is on YouTube and you can watch. And then we hosted Twitter Spaces with Octant and Funding the Commons that are all recorded. And if you click on those links, you can listen to them. We're also hosting another Twitter Space with Kernel and Octant tomorrow for anyone that wants to hear the latest about drips beyond what we share here. Finally, we have a bug bounty program with immunifying the works, again, within the spirit of trying to, make these contracts as safe as possible. Yeah, this is something that Andrew has been working on, and we think that it's close to be completed. With regards to our quarterly objectives, maybe to take a step back before I zoom in on what I have there. Like for us, we are a new project. Everything for us is proving product market fit, basically developing a technology that founders and developers want to use, right? So that's the bigger goal we have for the year. And as I said before, for now, we've been very focused on onboarding funders. The reason is that after many months of user interviews, we realized that, of course, developers care about getting funded, right? That's the most important thing that funding platforms should do. So we took the opposite approach and we said, hey, we have this cool technology that we developed. You can fund your critical software dependencies in a really nice streamlined workflow. You don't even need to have an Ethereum address, right? So there are a bunch of improvements that we bring to that mix. But we decided to focus on funders, and that's why this Radworks portal was important. It's the first one, and now we have a number of things in the works with regards to bringing more funders in that fund their critical software dependencies. So that's the main objective, and this is where we remain very, very focused. Everything flows from that. And with regards to the objectives that we had communicated to the Radworks community when we got funded, we had, these are a few months back, so they're still quite high level, in my opinion, and we can go deeper in any of those if you want to, but we have to continue to iterate on core experience based on user feedback. We're doing a lot of that. Integrate the Radicle code collaboration protocol with the assumption that it has stable release. I don't think that Radicle will have a stable release, and Cloudhead, correct me if you think so, but it will probably, even if it does have one, it will probably be end of the quarter. So I don't think it's realistic for us to integrate this quarter. So that will have to wait probably for early next year. Makes sense to see Cloudhead giving me thumbs up. And then conduct an additional audit. We've done this. This is completed, and the report will be published in the next 2 weeks. There was one objective that we actually end up deprioritizing, which was to deploy the contracts on more relevant EVM networks. The reason for that is something that I believe that I discussed in the previous call, has to do with governance of deployments in multiple EVM networks. We want to keep the Radicle DAO, the Radworks DAO, the Rad token holders be in control of the smart contracts in any EVM chain. This is very hard to do in a way that does not involve a multi-sig or some kind of weird setup that is not trust minimized. So we waiting on that one, and we're monitoring what's happening in the market. There's no it's not a blocker for us. Of course, the Ethereum fees are still very high, right? But we have come up with a number of good tricks in order to navigate that. First, with regards to the funders, this is a smaller concern for the funders, right? Because when you deploy a bigger amount of capital, even if you pay $5 in fees, it's not the end of the world, really. And with regards to the recipients, we actually have we're subsidizing those costs, so you can actually claim a project and not have to pay any transaction fees, and that comes from our own budget as we onboarding those things. This is another good point that actually Jason just commented. We're also trying to avoid having this global graph effectively that the Drift protocol is fragmented between networks until this thing actually could work in multi-networks in a very nice way. There's a product implication as well. Yeah, that's mostly it. So this quarter, again, we will be very happy if at the end of this quarter we have another 3 well-known Web3 organizations that are actually funding their critical software dependencies with Drifts. This would be really, big for us. So yeah, that remains the main focus, and all of our product development, all of our community development, all of our marketing follows from that effectively. And then with regards to the roadmap, we don't have many changes, like big changes on our roadmap. First of all, we have communicate, which I guess is a good thing. The only thing that is different is that we realize that for certain organizations, especially for organizations that are not DAOs, like thing about teams like, I don't know, Protocol Labs or Coinbase, right? So for these teams, having even if they do want to do dependency funding with drips, they would need to have KYC for their recipients. This is something that we don't offer at this point. We don't plan on building any of that stuff. These are very, it's a very different type of thing than the things we're building, but we're looking at integrating existing solutions. It's a non-trivial task, but we realize that this is of higher importance than we originally thought. And we understood this already a few months ago, but now in this quarter, we want to prioritize work that will satisfy that. So this will be optional. Of course, you don't need to use it if you don't need that, but if you're an organization that you want to fund your critical software dependencies with drips, you will have the option to also require a recipient to be KYC'd, again, without us effectively touching any of that data or whatsoever. This isn't our what we do. Yeah, and this is mostly it. So I'll stop here and I can take questions. I can go deeper in any topic. It's only in crypto for the person that is asking. I assume this is the Greek team. Yorgos. Hey, Yorgos. So Drips only works with crypto at the moment. So even with crypto, like many of the funders still want to make sure that some of their recipients are not in sanctioned lists and things like that. So yeah, even in crypto, everything you've seen with fiat still applies for certain, I guess, organizations. Abby.
Cool. Thanks so much for the update. It's really awesome to see so much money being streamed through this. So that's awesome. The question that I had was about the onboarding for recipients. And so It seems like you just said that you just kind of started, I guess maybe matchmaking as well as seeing what dependencies are there. Is there a process for onboarding the recipients that you guys are going to start going into now that you're starting to get more people actually funding through it? And how is that going? Because it seems like it could be a little bit of a matchmaking or kind of operationally heavy process to go out and find each person. So it'd be interesting to figure out how to make sure that people are really able to access these funds and claim them. And the rate of claim is probably also a success metric in a way.
Yeah. No, totally. It's a very complex thing. And this is something that we knew already from other teams that have actually tried to, send funds to software projects, right? So many times people don't respond. Many times you don't know if the maintainers are active, right? So many times people are like, "Oh, crypto, this is a scam. I don't want to touch this, whatever," right? You try to hack me. So there are a lot of considerations behind this. So we actually started sending messages last week. Our original strategy was to try and try things and see what works, right? And here you have different types of messages. Of course, you can send. You have different types of mediums, right? You can reach out using GitHub issues, which we actually tried. You can try to scrape email addresses of maintainers from GitHub, right? Some of these are public. You can do all sorts of weird stuff. Yeah. So we tried a few things. We had a few the first 2 days, even try to find the right language and the right tone and not basically sound scammy, right? Because this is the world we're in. If someone shows up on your email inbox, you just, want 10,000 euros, right? It sounds really weird. So it's actually quite of a complex task. And after failing a little bit the first 2 days and, working with a few people on this call about the tone, we decided to actually keep our message super simple and try to basically just be as human as possible. For now, we've been using GitHub issues and our messaging is, hey, we are this organization. You are one of our critical software dependencies. Thank you for all the work you've been doing. And we decided also to support your work. Who's the right person to talk to, and then can we get on the phone, right? So this is the thing that we do, is this working? Too early to say, but I can tell you that for instance, EtherJS was the first project that we actually onboarded. being able to have a call with them was amazing, and it was great for them because they actually grilled us about like, where's the money coming from, and like, what's the business model of this thing, and things like that, which it's very hard to do this type of Q&A on the internet on a GitHub issue or over email. It's actually a lot easier to do on a call. And then and then we also learned a lot, as I said before. So after that call, we were like, hey, this is like, if you think about success of Drips, is the one side of that right now is convincing funders to fund their critical software dependencies. The second side of that is basically making sure that developers are, claiming those funds, having a good experience, and passing those funds to their own software dependencies, so the game continues. So we basically said like, hey, this is super important. So Lucas and myself, we decided that we're going to take all of those calls for this first batch, for the Radworks proposal. That's roughly 40 projects, if I'm not mistaken, 1 degree out, right? So we're going to do the 1 degree out, see how far we will go with that, and we will speak to all of them, to as much as we can, and then adapt. That's the honest answer. Like how well it's gonna do, we will report back to the next meeting. But that's our approach for now.
Awesome, thank you.
Yes, Selby, I'll get to your question. Cloud, you had the question, right?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of was answered by Javi's question. I guess it's probably too early, but I was just curious if you had any success stories with non-crypto projects yet, or funny stories.
No, we have done nothing yet.
Yeah.
We have a document that actually we can link, and that's a good thing, where you can see who we have contacted and if they have responded yet. Lucas is maintaining such a project. We have no funny stories yet.
I just remember the chat with the Svelte maintainer, and since I saw Svelte
I remember
in your dependencies again, I was like, well, that's going to go well.
No, for context, like Alex and myself had spoken to some of the Svelte people back in the day, and of course, like the cryptocurrency topic is very divisive generally in the world. And the person was like, yeah, I'm not sure about cryptocurrencies and all of
very
that.
uncomfortable.
No, totally. So we will be reporting all of those. This will be part of our reporting, but we have nothing funny yet. We got, again, like the Ether.js call, which is the first one we had. It was very inspiring, and one thing that it was very interesting to hear directly from them was this topic of defaults. So basically, he was saying, this is amazing, but like now we want to do the same, but like, what's a good percentage for us to actually share with our own dependencies, right? And how do you go about those defaults? And how do you go about, for instance, like one of their dependencies is a Microsoft project. You can guess which one. So what do we do about that? So we fund them, right? So it was super interesting to just see the questions that people have with regards to, this is amazing. I hope that more people do this. I want to do this myself, but what about this and that and that? So so that's what we have for now. We will see if people are like, fuck off, we hate crypto or whatever. Like, I'm curious, what we're gonna get. But we will be reporting back.
Cool. Thanks.
Any more questions? Selby, you had one. Would they claim your Drip FAQ doc project makes sense on the website? We have something like this on the we have something like this on the docs. Generally, Andrew has done a fantastic job with our documents. They're very well developed, in my opinion, especially for where the project is. It will definitely make sense. The original message that actually Lucas sent was this really long thing, which was saying, this is what Radworks does. This is what Drips is. This is what, we decided to do. And it was super long with all of these different links. And then we said, like, like, does this work? Maybe it works for some, maybe it doesn't work for others. But for now, we said, let's simplify, let's actually take the human approach. We love your work. We want to support you financially. Can we talk to discuss how you can do this? So that's where we are. And then we have all of the supporting material, but we're not leading with those. Cool. Any more questions?
Looks like Yorgos has
Yeah.
a question in the chat if you saw it.
Yes. So it sounds like one of the crypto to fiat conversion compounds could really help Drips take off. I agreed. That's also my intuition. Have you considered partnering with any such company? Not yet. The reason we haven't done that is because we strictly following user feedback. So the moment there's a project that tells us that, hey, we're not going to use Drips because you don't have any fiat to crypto, either a funder or a recipient, that would be the moment that we will actually prioritize that work. We've been trying to stay very strict within that. My intuition tells me the exact same thing that yours, that what you're saying. But I want to wait until that happens. And if this is your team, because I know that you're using Drips to receive funds, then let me know and we can discuss that. Someone else had Andrew, you had you raised your hand.
Yeah, that's right. Hey everybody. I just wanted to, this is a response to Yorgos's question. And not to contradict Elliot, since I know he's totally aware of this, but the one kind of conversation we've had around the crypto to fiat conversion that is really interesting is there is a project called Endowment that some of you may be familiar with. They've been pretty involved with like a bunch of the conferences, and they're just doing really interesting work. They do fiat to crypto on-ramps, like specifically for nonprofits. So it's the 501(c), I think it's 501(c) nonprofits. And they've got I think they've got something like 5,000 of them set up with Ethereum addresses. So that's one thing we've had one conversation with their team. Obviously it wouldn't work for every single developer, but a lot of FOSS projects are nonprofits or have access to a nonprofit. And yeah, one of the neat things about integrating with Endowment is they've already got some of those bridges built, and they've it would make it really easy to do this without having to build a lot of the fiat to crypto rails in-house, which are obviously super complicated and just organizationally complex as well. So yeah, I just wanted to flag that. I think that could be a pretty interesting integration in the future to do this without having to do a lot of it ourselves.
Yep, what Andrew said, yes. Cool. Any other question? If there's no other question, I actually wanted to close with one more thing, if that's okay. If I have the time, I don't know if I have the time.
Yeah, you're good.
Cool. Yeah, the other thing that actually happened on the weekend, and I think it's quite exciting and was very motivating to see, was that over the weekend there was a traditional finance, I guess, a Wall Street organization called VanEck that effectively they announced on the weekend that they're launching an ETF, basically they're launching futures for Ethereum. So this is the ability for anyone effectively to bet, if the Ether price will go up or down in Wall Street, right? And leaving aside, all the Wall Street stuff, the interesting thing that they announced was that basically they want to actually channel 10% of their own profits into a project called Protocol Guild, which is effectively all Ethereum core contributors. And why this is really exciting is that because it seems that all of this push that is happening within crypto networks with regards to, hey, fund the public goods that you depend on, fund the people that are making your work possible. It seems that actually starts to pay off. And why I'm saying this is because this is actually very related to Drips. Until now, with Drips, we were always thinking that our goal here is to actually establish a new norm for crypto projects, effectively to fund their own dependencies, the same way that you fund your employees. Like, what if a percentage of your profits your token, whatever it is, would go towards funding the software projects that make your work possible. But and we will always think about DAOs as the optimal audience for that, because their finance are on chain, and because we can have a little program that does this type of piping of funds. As the income comes in, you can actually now share it with your, with different projects. But what's exciting is that it seems that we were underestimating how far everyone else is moving, and it's actually really interesting to see that now even traditional organizations actually consider similar schemes, right? So maybe the total addressable market here is much bigger than what we were originally thinking about, and maybe we'll see more of these traditional finance organizations, venture capitalists, potentially something that, I'm starting to think about doing similar things and funding the open source projects that they actually depend on, while they don't have to in theory, but they realize that actually it's on their own interest to do so. Cool.
Thanks, Ellie. Yeah, that's pretty epic. I did not know that happened over the weekend. So definitely think that this whole, it's all related, in the same, the same approach and everything. So awesome. Cool. Okay. Thank you so much for all of I can send it, Shelby. I have it here. Cool. Thank you, both LA and Alexi, for all the amazing updates. We'll use the last little bit of our time to quickly run through the Foundation Org update. I'm going to share my screen. So I'm going to be presenting for Angie today, and also for Sean. I won't be able to get all of your questions answered, but if you want to follow up with them specifically on the forum for more specific ones, you can do that. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Cool. Awesome. Okay, great. So to start off with some general announcement and updates before getting into our committee progress updates, the biggest update that we wanted to let everybody know is that the foundation, which as we know is formerly referred to as the Radicle Foundation, so the Swiss entity that is behind the Foundation Org, has actually been renamed to the Better Internet Foundation. So this name is not only more compatible with the foundation's purpose, as we know that also Radicle is more explicitly related to our code collaboration product and everything that the Radicle Org is doing, but we also believe more accurately reflects the shift that we also see the foundation going in starting to really steward its purpose of supporting and developing resilient, non-extractive peer-to-peer technologies that promote internet freedom. So we on the Foundation Council, so me, Cloudhead, and Angie, have been really starting to envision, what this foundation could look like as, an advocate, a nurturer, and a protector of the general FOSS ecosystem, in addition to the support that we're providing Radworks explicitly. So the rename kind of represents that shift, and I'm sure that the 2024 org proposal will also kind of outline that shift as well, but we think it's pretty awesome, and it's also a great name that we're really excited to have landed on. So the Foundation Council is still currently comprised of myself, Cloudhead, and Angie as of July 2023. And over the last quarter, Angie has actually taken on the role as Foundation President and is the technical org lead moving forward for the Foundation Org. So that's awesome. And the update in terms of hiring is that the foundation is looking for a strategic financial partnerships manager. The job description is actually linked in this update. But we wanted to do a general call out that if other orgs have job descriptions that they wish to post to the Radworks job board, which you can also find through this link, you can send an email to work@radicle.foundation. We're changing the email addresses now that we've gone through this name change, but just wanted to highlight that this job board is something that we're going to have on the foundation website, and it is like a good channel for people who are coming and trying to understand what opportunities there are in the Radworks ecosystem. And so we encourage everybody to utilize that resource as we're going to be building more access and channels to find that resource throughout the next quarter. So That's awesome. So next, we'll move into the committee progress updates. I have a quick update from Sean. You can reach out to him more explicitly with regards to the marketing objectives. But there's been a bunch of completed objectives, some of them in the previous quarter, such as conducting a marketing assessment for the ecosystem, aligning on our org and brand split, choosing a new name and also a new brand, just in generally for everything that has spawned with Radworks. But we've also been, I think Q3 was just kind of like finishing up and getting across the final mile on a lot of that Radworks brand website and documents. They supported the Drips V2 launch, a bunch of marketing strategy, and have been further defining the Radworks marketing strategy, including key perceptions, key values, goals, and key activities in Q3, and starting to formulate a new brand and messaging framework for Radworks based off of our new purpose, vision, and mission. Moving forward into the next quarter, we're actually going to be developing and deploying a content strategy for Radworks, including standing up new channels. We just made this major shift, and now we can start kind of like solidifying and backing and further defining what we mean by Radworks and our purpose. So that should be exciting. And I think the marketing team has been, starting to really think about product marketing for Drips and Radicle. So Drips is currently in progress. They already supported with the launch, and we'll continue to do that. And Radicle's in the very early stages, since Radicle is fast approaching this, basically this V1 launch as well. So. And what has not started but will start is to develop experimentation and tracking infrastructure for Radworks, Drips, and Radicle to probably support marketing objectives as well. So that's what I have for marketing. Again, feel free to reach out to Sean, who's not on the call, and I don't think Alexa is either right now, with more questions there. In terms of governance support, so one of the biggest achievements, as LA already chatted about, is that we passed the Radworks funding dependencies proposal through governance. This was passed in the August cycle and allocated a total of 1 million in RAD and USCC, split between the two to fund the critical dependencies for the Drips, Radicle, and grants orgs. I think this was a really big deal for the Radworks ecosystem in general. For everything that LA said, it was, it's a big deal actually to be one of the first communities to kind of like take this step towards funding our dependencies, and already a lot of thoughts, since we've initiated this process on how we can kind of like build this into our narrative and pioneer this behavior for other communities and DAOs as well. So I think this is really cool, not just because we're dog fooding Drips, but because we as a community are also stating that this is, the behavior that we believe is necessary in kind of open ecosystems like ours. So that was a huge win, and I think we're super excited to see how that continues throughout the rest of the year and into next year. We are fast approaching our 2024 org proposal season. So as I mentioned earlier in the call, these org proposals will hit the form by November 2nd. And so me and Shelby have just been in, kind of focus mode, ensuring that all the orgs have the information they need from the foundation org and also from the governance committee to draft and publish these proposals over the next couple of weeks. There's, in preparation for these, we've also been facilitating a ton of conversations with org leads to further define their longer-term relationship with Radworks alongside of the apiary team. And so I think that we'll see the products of those conversations with the publishing of these 2024 org proposals in terms of how we're structuring our retrospectives, our partnership agreements, and how we've, basically, presented the orgs and worked with the orgs to kind of develop a more clear image that will support another full year of funding. So that has been, a really awesome process, and it's been really great to work with the org leads on that. So excited to, basically see how all the deliverables form over the next couple of weeks. We've also been working on improving our risk assessment and security processes by introducing different tools in infrastructure. So, these range from treasury management. We've been conducting runway analyses on the Radworks treasury to better inform how we want to approach treasury management and diversification needs. We've been creating internal dashboards to better track token holders, delegation, and participation, so we can add some more substance to our metrics as we start to embark on, our more heavy governance redesign. And we've been exploring upgrading our governance contracts to a better, well-maintained governance system, which is highlighted in the upgrade social proposal that we have on the forum right now. And we've been working on developing emergency response plans to better plan for potential governance attacks, just like kind of general governance upkeep, we call it, to make sure that, our system around the Radworks treasury is safe, secure, and well-functioning. It's kind of been our goal for over the last quarter, and will continue into the next. And we've continued to work alongside of the apiary team to outline more governance improvement initiatives and goals to tackle this quarter and in the new year. This will be, really defined in the November proposals for the 2024 org proposals. We have like a ton of work that we've been doing just to kind of further define, what governance means for Radworks, and what initiatives we think are best to kind of explore at this point and in the near future. So lots of stuff there, and I think even more to hit the forum, in the November cycle. And then in operations, so the biggest update is that I think that the operations team has been working, and Yuval specifically has been working hard to issue a special financial report at the end of this month. So usually we have the quarterly report going out on the forum now, but at the end of the month, there will be actually like a more comprehensive, detailed report that Yuval has been working on for our use of evaluating the 2024 org proposals. So it'll be a report on the org use of funds used year to date, as well as a forecast of their spend for the rest of the year. So this will come, I think, towards the end of the month as well. And so keep an eye out for that. I think it'll be an important supplement for the 2024 org proposal review as well. Operations did an awesome, productive offsite in Scotland, which I'm jealous that I didn't go to. So they not only got to know each other as they're a new distributed team, but thoroughly scoped and organized the work for the rest of Q4, and then what's happening in 2024 to make this part-time team sustainable long-term. So that's great. Governance also did a couple offsites in the last quarter, one in Berlin with the apiary team, and then another during Berlin Blockchain Week, where we got to meet and hang out with a bunch of people IRL. So in terms of timeline and budget updates, so I think more detailed overview on spending will be included in the 2024 org proposal after this year-to-date special financial report that Yuval is working on is published. But definitely the foundation org spend has reduced since separating from Radicle and Drips expenses. That's been a continuous process, and the spend is still on track, if not reduced. So that's also great news. I think I'll pause there for questions, as that is it for this update.
I had a question,
Mm-hmm.
not about anything you said, which was great, but it is about Radworks and Drips. I asked in Discord the other day, but the Radworks profile on Drips is like completely empty, even though like Radworks is like funding tons and tons of stuff. I wonder if we could fix that.
So I updated the ENS with all the metadata.
Yeah, I'm just saying like it's not the profile is not the one that owns the actual streams of money.
See, okay. Can you provide me? I can definitely help with kind of filling out that profile, if that's possible. Because is the treasury address the controller of the Drips list?
So the problem is that the Radworks.eth is not owned by the treasury right now, right? It's like a different address. I guess we'd have to transfer it and then also execute a proposal to set the primary ANS name. But it should be pretty easy. Maybe we can just work on making such a proposal.
Yeah, We could totally do that. We can talk about what that would mean. We'd probably have to make sure that that ENS record is not going to change in the immediate future, and that kind of the information there is relatively static before transferring the ownership over to the Treasury. But I'd be super down to do that, especially if it's impacting the way that it's viewed on the profile. So just follow up with me on that, Jason and Brandon, and we can figure that out. Sally?
Hey, yeah, you just referred to the special report that Yuval is sending out. That's only going to go to org leads, so it's not going to be published on the Radworks community site anywhere. So it's very, very, very minute detail stuff.
I see. So that's like the very special one.
Yes.
So org leads are getting a very special one. And then the forum, I'm sure we'll be getting a
yeah, it will be getting one. It just won't be getting
a slightly less special version of that one.
Thanks.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks for that clarification. Anything else? Okay, cool. Then I think we will wrap there. Thank you everybody for joining. All of the written updates are on the forum if anybody has any follow-up questions with regards to the different updates that we heard today. But as usual, a very productive and exciting call. Awesome to see what everybody's working on. So thank you all for taking the time and joining. I'll let you all go here.